Imagine this. An 80-year-old king sits down for his midday meal. The palace is quiet, servants glide between pillars of carved stone. The air carries the scent of rice and river water. Outside the walls of Nabadwip, the Ganges moves slow and indifferent, the way it has for 1,000 years. This king, Lakshman Sena, rules a dynasty that has commanded Bengal for generations. His empire, at its peak, possessed the territories of Gauda, Kamrupa, Kalinga, Magadha, and Kashi. In his youth, he led military campaigns that helped his grandfather and father expand the borders of the Sena kingdom. He is a patron of poets, a devout Vaishnava, a man who built a calendar era in his own name, the Lakshmana era, used in Bengal and Bihar, for at least 400 years. But that was then. Now, in the year 1204, his hands tremble when they reach for the cup. His generals are distant. The central authority in the Sena kingdom has diminished, and a number of petty chiefs have become de facto rulers of large parts of Bengal. The throne is old, and so is the man sitting on it. And right now, at this very moment, 18 horsemen are riding toward his gates. He does not know they are coming. He does not know that by the time he finishes his meal, his kingdom will be gone. To understand what happened at Nabadwip, you must first understand the man who shattered it and where he came from. Bakhtiar Khilji was born in the second half of the 12th century in Garmsir town in Helmand province of Afghanistan. He was a member of the Turkic Khalaj tribe, which spoke the Khalaj language that is still spoken in parts of Iran. He was nobody. It is reported that he was of common birth, had long arms extending below his knees, a short physical stature, and an unfavorable countenance. The histories are not kind about his appearance, and neither was the world. When he arrived in India around 1193, he went looking for opportunity, for a place in the armies of the powerful. He tried to enter the army of Kutubuddin Aibak in Delhi, but was refused. He then went further eastward and took a position under a minor commander at Badayun in northern India. He drifted. He was turned away, overlooked, underestimated. But Bakhtiar Khilji had something that no court could measure and no commander could see at a glance. He had an instinct for war, raw, brutal, and unrelenting. And eventually someone noticed. He went to Oud, where Malik Husam al-Din recognized him for his worth. He was given land, he gathered followers, and then he started raiding. Small raids at first, testing the defenses of local rulers, probing weaknesses, learning the terrain. And with each raid, his ambitions grew larger. His army grew stronger, and his reputation grew darker. He launched a series of lightning raids against the Sena kingdom. His first target was the great university of Odantapuri, which he destroyed in 1193. He then built a fort there to mark his victory. This was around 3 years before the destruction of the Nalanda and Vikramashila universities in 1200. The sacking and conquest of these two great universities further bolstered his power, and he became the ruler of Bihar. The man nobody wanted now controlled an entire province. But he wasn't finished. He had heard of something greater. He had heard of Bengal, rich, fertile, ancient Bengal, and of its aging king Lakshman Sena, and Bakhtiar Khilji began to plan. Every conqueror faces a choice: the obvious path or the dangerous one, the road your enemy expects or the one he has forgotten. Sensing the presence of a strong army of Lakshmana Sena on the main route to Nadia, Bakhtiar proceeded instead through the jungle of Jharkhand. Think about what that means. The Jharkhand forests of the 13th century were not roads. They were walls of green, dense, unmapped, unforgiving. Taking an army through them was close to suicidal. Any delay, any wrong turn, and his forces would be scattered, starved, or ambushed by local tribes who knew every shadow of the canopy. But Bakhtiar didn't care about safety. He cared about speed. Instead of taking the primary route, sensing that Lakshmana Sena had prepared strong troops anticipating his attack, he strategically took a different route through Jharkhand forest. However, Bakhtiar advanced so rapidly that only 18 of his horsemen could keep up. 18, not 18,000, not 1,800. 18 men on horseback, crashing out of the forest into the outskirts of a royal capital, dust on their faces, swords at their sides. He divided his army into several groups, and he himself led a group of horsemen and advanced towards Nadia in the guise of horse traders. This is the moment where audacity meets genius. He, along with just 17 horsemen, entered the city without drawing suspicion, as they were assumed to be horse traders. Bakhtiar proceeded cautiously towards the palace, which lay approximately a mile from the city's gate. No banners, no war drums, just a handful of men with horses, walking through streets where merchants sold silk and scholars debated scripture, heading quietly, deliberately, toward the beating heart of a kingdom. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. Upon reaching the palace, he initiated an attack on the guards, causing a significant commotion. Simultaneously, Bakhtiar's main army arrived at the principal gate of the city, where they encountered resistance from the guards, further intensifying the chaos. Meanwhile, Lakshman Sena was in the midst of his midday meal when a loud cry erupted from both the palace gate and the city's interior. When the situation became critical, Lakshman Sena left the palace and retired to eastern Bengal. Try to imagine the sound of that moment, the clatter of plates hitting the floor, the shouts echoing through marble corridors, servants running in every direction, guards drawing weapons too late, and an 80-year-old king who once rode to war in his youth, who once commanded armies across the breadth of India, now rising from his meal in confusion, realizing that the world he knew was ending. He fled. Not out of cowardice, but out of necessity. The palace was already lost, the gates were already breached. As soon as Bakhtiar's whole army arrived, he took possession of the city. His men seized several horses and elephants, along with enormous wealth. In the meantime, the main army of Bakhtiar had overcome the guards and began to plunder the city. This plunder continued for 3 days. 3 days. That is how long Nabadwip burned. Bakhtiar Khilji left Nadia in ruins and established his capital at Lakhnauti. The city that had been the seat of Sena power, the city of poets and temples and learning, was left in desolation. And the man who did it, the man nobody wanted, the man with the unfavorable face and the arms that hung too long, now ruled Bengal. But here's where history refuses to be simple. Lakshman Sena continued to rule in eastern Bengal approximately for 3 or 4 years after the raid on Nadia, and died sometime after 1205. He did not vanish, he did not surrender. He retreated, regrouped, and held on to what he could. The Sena dynasty was wounded, it was diminished, but it was not dead. Not yet. For decades after that terrible afternoon in Nabadwip, Sena princes issued land grants, patronized scholars, and held court in the eastern reaches of Bengal. According to the Tabakati Nasiri, Vanga, eastern and southern Bengal was ruled by the descendants of Lakshman Sena at least up to 1245 or 1260. The story that popular history tells that everything ended with 18 horsemen is not the whole truth. It is the loudest truth, but not the only one. And what of Bakhtiar himself? Here is the irony that history so often delivers with a cold smile. The conqueror who moved faster than his own army, who toppled a dynasty with a handful of riders, who seemed unstoppable, tried to do it again. He got to know about the territories of Turkestan and Tibet. After making his hold strong in Bengal, within 2 years, his mind had started to wander around the idea to conquer Tibet. He marched into the mountains with 10,000 men. He met resistance he had never imagined. His men were so badly defeated that the starving soldiers were forced to eat their own horses to stay alive. When they arrived in the plains of North Bengal, they faced a new enemy. They were ambushed by the Kamarupa army, and large numbers of them drowned crossing the Brahmaputra and Tista rivers. It is said that of the 10,000 who marched into Tibet, only around 100 returned. 100. From 10,000. The man who took a kingdom with 18 men lost an army of 10,000 in the mountains. Following his catastrophic defeat in Tibet, Bakhtiar Khilji plunged into a deep depression. It is said that he never left his bed even when his own generals began to turn against him. The lightning raider, the man who outran his own cavalry, the conqueror of Nabadwip. He lay in a room in Devkot, staring at the ceiling, while the empire he had built with speed and fury began to fracture around him. One day, in August 1206, Ali Mardan Khilji, one of Bakhtiar's principal generals, arrived in Devkot and, finding him bedridden, pulled the sheet from his face and stabbed him to death. This is how the fearsome Bakhtiar Khilji met his end. No epic battle, no last stand on a hilltop, just a sick man in a bed and a knife in the dark. He was maybe 40 years old. Think about that. A man who rose from nothing, who was rejected and ridiculed, who carved a kingdom out of speed, daring, and brutality, who proved that the walls of even the mightiest cities are only as strong as the assumptions of those who build them. And in the end, he was undone not by a greater army, but by his own ambition, and by the same ruthlessness he had wielded against others. The Sena dynasty, for all its wounds, outlived him. The forests of Jharkhand still stand. And somewhere in the soil beneath modern Nabadwip, beneath the temples rebuilt and the rivers rerouted and the centuries layered one upon another, there is a silence. The silence of a midday meal interrupted, the silence of hoofbeats approaching through trees, the silence of a world about to change, and an old king who did not hear it coming. 18 horsemen. That is all it took.